Hello guys. I hope you are now done with your prelims 2026. So you must have calculated your marks as well, but now it is the time to be, fully active for your mains preparation, right? The thing is that you have very less time between prelims and mains, and you cannot wait for the prelims results to be out to start your preparation, right? So in this lecture, I just want to give you a brief strategy and overall idea, like the way you should approach the mains examination, right? Because it is content heavy, but we should study in such a manner that it does not become too much of a load. And at the end of the day, we are able to produce a good output. And the good output is writing good answers, meaningful answers, right? Within the given time constraints. Done? So, if I am going to discuss the subjects that we have, right? So, one second. So, right. So the first paper is that of essay, right? The first paper is that of essay. So this is your essay paper done, and the essay paper carries a weightage of 250 marks. So the essay paper carries a weightage of 250 marks, and this is one paper which can make or break the situation, right? So a good if you have prepared well, you will be able to get 20 to 30 marks more in the essay paper. But if you have not prepared well, or if you have not written a coherent essay, you may get less marks, right? So it's very, very important that you approach the essay paper in a strategic manner. The second thing is your GS 1 to 3, right? So I have divided the GS into GS 1, okay, GS 2, and GS 3. Done. So there's also a GS 4, which is ethics. So I'm going to cover it, differently, because the way the answers need to be written in GS4, it differs from the way they should be written in GS1 to 3, right? So in GS1, right? In GS1, if we check, so which subjects do we have? We have history, right? We have history, so we have geography, okay, and we have Indian society. So we have society, right? We have society. Done. So in paper two, which subjects do we have? Okay, in paper two, the subjects is polity. Okay, so it is governance, and then we have social justice, and we have international relations. Done. So polity, governance, social justice, international relations. So this is what we have to cover in GS paper two. Done. So in paper three, it is extensive. So we have agriculture. Like agriculture is a part of economy, but I'm covering it separately because in GS3, at least 4 out of 20 questions you get from agriculture itself. Also, it has huge weightage in GS1, human geography part as well, right? So agriculture, and then we have, the economy. So agriculture, economy, we have environment and disaster management. We have environment and disaster management done. So we have internal security, and we have science and technology. Done. So we have science and technology in GS paper 3. Okay. So the third aspect is going to be your GS4, right? GS4 is very, very important. Like essay, it is a make or break paper. So if you have understood the crux of ethics, you'll be able to get 120 marks, 130 marks. But if you have not been able to, get the crux or reproduce ethics, answers in a proper manner, you'll be getting less marks, right? You can even get 70 marks, 80 marks. So it's going to be a huge detriment to your score. Done. So in GS4, if we check, there are two sections, right? So there is section A and there is section B. So section A is theory, right? Section A is theory. So we get 13 questions in section A and we have case study, right? So there is theory and there is case study. Both the parts should be approached in a different manner. So theory and case study, the crux remains the same, but they should be written in somewhat different manner, right? Now we come to your optional. Okay, so you have two papers of optional. You have two paper of optional. So this is paper one and paper two. Done. So between this prelims and mains of 2026, I am going to help you in this module, like the GS and the essay part. So this essay and the GS part. So essay, GS 1 to 3 and GS 4. So whatever knowledge I have gained or whatever learnings, right, I have got from my experience of 6 mains between 2020 and 2025. So I'll be sharing that with you. Done? So I would like to emphasize that the knowledge part you may already be having, right? So, but the way it should be presented and the learning part, you can, get some insights from my experience, right? So you should not make the same mistakes that I did. So when we move ahead, so we discuss, the first part was to discuss the syllabus, right? So we have discussed the syllabus. That means we have discussed the subjects, not the syllabus as of now, right? So we can divide the entire mains preparation. We can divide the entire mains preparation into three aspects. The first is your syllabus. The first is your syllabus. So for each paper, the syllabus should be learned by heart, right? The keyword should be known to you. You should understand what the examiner expects. Done? Now, in some papers like ethics, the keywords from syllabus, so they can be used as it is in your mains answers, and they add a lot of value. They add a lot of weightage, right? So syllabus, you can check from the official UPSC notification. Yes. So the syllabus should be clear to you. GS 1, 2, 3, 4, essay, everything should be clear. Okay. The second part, which is very important, is the retention part. This is the retention part. The thing is, between prelims and mains, you learn many, many things, but how much do you retain? A percentage of what you learn is what you retain, and a percentage of what you retain is what you reproduce in the final exam. So first, let's work upon this aspect, learning to retention. So we have to maximize the retention part. How can we do this thing? Our brain has limited capacity and the n number of things that we do, right? So retention, our mind is wired in such a way that if we study something in question answers format, if we study something in question answers format, it is easier to retain it, right? It is easier to retain it. You may recall your experiences from the nursery or class 1, class 2 when we were taught how to learn things, right? So it is always important that we can study things in a question answer format. And we cannot do rote memorization because rote memorization will not be able to retain for a long time. That means, so how should you retain? You should retain by template-based study. You should retain, so by template-based study. Done? So each question answer, you should study in a template-based study. Now, what do we mean by a template-based study? What is template-based study? So say you're asked the question that what are the challenges faced by women in modern India? What are the challenges faced by women in modern India? So first of all, you can think, challenges like so many crimes are happening, right? The educational rate, so they are not being given the proper access to education, right? Many things you can think over. But do you have the time to think plainly in the examination? The answer is no, right? So you have to think in terms of templates. So now let's approach the same question, from the template perspective. How can we approach that thing? So challenges faced by women in modern India. So what are the social challenges that women face, right? Social challenges, as in you think about social challenges like the female feticide, right? Dowry, and so many aspects. Think about the economic challenges. So they face, you already know that they are paid less. As per ILO, women are paid only 34% of the wages when compared to men, right? So we'll get into those aspects. So I just want to emphasize that you should think in terms of dimensions. The social challenges faced by women, the economic, the political, right? The educational, the technical, administrative, legal, so many things, right? Now, this has two aspects. It shows you thinking in a multi-dimensional aspect. Also, it reduces, right, the burden on the memory to learn things as it is. We don't have to do rote memorization. I hope I have made the point clear, right? Now the second part, the first part is, oh, once again, yes. So the first part is the syllabus part. The second part is the retention part. Done. And the third part is the writing. So that means this is the most important aspect. This is what the examiner is eventually going to see. So you learn something, you retain something. So we worked upon how to retain something to a greater extent. Now, how to reproduce something in the paper to a greater extent. So when we are, that is the writing part, right? The third part. So this writing, we should always break a question into its parts and subparts. So you should know how to structure an answer. Given a question, you should know how to structure an answer. So this can be in terms of you should break the question into parts and subparts, right? You should break the question into parts and subparts. So this is very, very important, right? You should know how to structure and you should actually write. You should write answers, right? This is very, very important. You should write answers. Okay. Now I'm going to, so I'm going to approach the answer writing in a slightly deviant manner when compared to the coaching institutes. That is what they have been teaching you. Okay. So let me explain you how. So this is, okay. So writing answers, I want you to approach it in two manner. So the first thing in writing answers is that, so you should write a test series. You should write a test series at home. So you should write a test series at home and this you should self-evaluate. Test series at home and this you should self-evaluate. Done? So write a test series at home and you should self-evaluate. Done? The second part is before your exam, you should write simulator tests. Like this is the actual test. You become exam ready. So these are the simulator tests. This is the simulator test. So before the final exam, many coaching institutes like Vision Forum, so they do conduct this simulator test. You can just join and the invigilators will be there in those tests. So you get the proper exam feel, right? So you can give it 1 month before exam. You can give it, so 1 month before exam. Done? 1 month before exam. So the simulator test. And test series at home, you should self-evaluate. Done. Now, why should you self-evaluate? So first thing is, how will you self-evaluate and why should you self-evaluate? Okay. So how you should self-evaluate and why should you self-evaluate? This is very, very important, right? Why am I emphasizing on this part? So first thing is, why should you self-evaluate? So why shouldn't you straight away start writing answers that will be checked by the coaching institutes? So the first thing is the quality of checking is not very good. So the quality of checking is not very good. So quality of checking is abysmal. If I say, if I would like to express the quality of checking is not good, right? So it's not good. Second thing is we have to be active in our preparation. Now, see, once we start giving tests, we have a mental tendency to wait for the evaluation to come. Only when the evaluation comes, we sit with the test paper and the model answer for analysis. So this is wrong. We don't have to do this thing. We cannot, we cannot introduce any delay in our analysis. That means we have no time for delay between the time we wrote the test and the time we got the analysis. So there are two things. Quality of checking, it's not good because many times students only are checking. And the second thing is that we don't want any delay during the time in which we wrote the test and the time when we got the feedback. I hope I made my point clear, right? The second thing is how will you self-evaluate? So how will you self-evaluate? So this can be divided into few parts. So structuring, you should see whether you have structured the answers well. To help you in structuring, so I will do one thing for the 2025 PYQs of essay GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4. I will discuss each question in a structured manner. Like how can we break the question? What are parts we can introduce? Once I bring those videos, you can just watch them and you can understand how to approach a question. And the second part is content, right? The second part is content. So how do you check the content? Right. So first of all, when you write a test series at home, right? When you write a test series at home, so content, do one thing. So the first thing is that you check how much you were able to retain from your own notes. Check your own notes, how much you were able to retain, because many times you will not be able to fully write even those things that you have written in your own notes. So this should be your first priority. Check your own notes for the content after you have written the test. And the second thing is that do value addition, do value addition from the model answer. Do value addition from the model answer, like some case studies, some Supreme Court judgments, some good phrases, some good conclusions, some good introduction, right? Those things you can introduce. And what you can do is that this value addition, include that in your own notes while you are revising. Include that in your own notes. So while you are revising, I hope I have made my point clear. Done. So what did we discuss? So first of all, we have discussed that we can think about the main subjects in a few manner: essay, ethics, optional, GS 1 to 3, right? So mains, there are three aspects for each paper. The syllabus should be learned by heart. Done. So how will you be able to retain properly? You should study in question answers format. Everything that you study, try to ask questions out of it, right? You'll be able to retain it properly. Second thing is that do a template based study. Do not do rote memorization. So I will bring, some videos where I'll explain you how to move from rote memorization to template based study, right? And the third part, which is the most important, is your actual writing. So you should break the question into parts and subparts, and you should write answers continuously. You should write answers. So, right, I'll explain how to, do the test series at home. You should write the answers. So you should buy any one test which may have 20 to 30 tests from the market and give those tests every 2 to 3 days. I'll explain you how to give. Every 2 to 3 days, you have to give a test, right? And you have to revise and give the test. And 1 month before the exam, give simulator tests in which invigilators will be present, right? So many coaching institutes do conduct those simulator tests. Now, when you give the test series at home, you have to do self evaluation. You have to evaluate the same day that what you are writing. So why should you self evaluate? Because the quality of checking by the coaching institutes, it's not, there's no accreditation and the quality is not good, right? Also, you should not introduce any delay between the time you gave the test and the time you analyze the test. So we should reduce this mental gap, right? And then how should you self-evaluate? So I'll bring some structuring videos on the 2025 PYQs where I'll help you with the structuring part. Also, I'll bring some videos on the content part also where you can understand how to approach some answers from a template-based perspective. Once you have given your test, what should you do for the content part? First, check your own notes. Check how much you were able to retain, right? Check how much you were able to retain because many times you will not be able to write everything you have in your own notes. So that should get the first priority. And the second thing is you can refer the model answers and do some value addition from the model answers. Any value addition should be incorporated immediately into your own notes such that you don't have to refer these model answers once again. You don't have to refer these model answers once again. Done? Okay. So done. So I've explained you the three aspects which I wanted to explain. Now let's move forward. The three aspects. So the third part is how do you have to give the test, right? So test series at home. Let me explain it properly. How do you have to give the test series at home? How should you approach the test series at home? Done? So the first thing is it has to be every 3 days you have to give tests. So today is June 28. So plus 3 is, sorry, this is May 28, right? This is May 28. So plus 3 give, so it's June 1. You give the test on June 1. You give it on 4 June, on 7 June, on 10 June, on 13 June, and so on. Done? So you give this test GS1 full length test. So this is GS2, this is GS3, this is GS4. So this is SA. Done. Again, so this will be GS1, so this will be GS2, and so on, so on. Plus 3 days, and the test will go on, right? You may say that, are we supposed to study only GS and not the optional? So I'll come to the optional part. How do we have to segregate our time into blocks where we can study GS as well as optional on the same day? So I'll come back to it, right? But first of all, let's understand the way we should be continuously active in our preparation. And the only way to get active is to keep writing what you are studying, and do not run after content. Whatever content you have, just keep writing based on that, and just revise multiple times. You have to revise. Done. So this GS1 test, say you have to give this GS1 test. So how should you prepare? So for this GS1 test, which is on June 1, and this is May 28 or 29, whatever, right? Plus 3 days you can add. So for this GS1, just go through the PYQs of the last 5 to 6 years, say 2020 to 2025. For GS1, do the same. For GS2, go through GS2 PYQs for GS2, right? For GS3, the same, 5 to 6 years PYQs. Essay also the same thing. Done. So by the end of this block, so this is round one. This is round one. The 5 to 6 years of PYQs is done for each of the subjects, right? GS 1, 2, 3, 4, and SA. Now, in the next round, say this is 16 and this is 19, right? So for the next round, GS1, go through the PYQs of last, remaining 5 years. So this will be 2014 to 19. 2014 to 19. So same for GS1, GS2. Similarly, PYQs 2014 to 19 for all the GS subjects. This will be your round two. So round two of PYQ completion and round one of PYQ completion. Done. So how should you approach test series at home? Every 2 to 3 days, you need to give a test, right? So you have to divide it into 2 rounds. In the first round, complete, 5 to 6 years PYQs for each subject. And in the second round, complete 5 to 6 years PYQs, the remaining PYQs for each of the subject. Done? Okay. Now, how do you have to prepare? So this is like, how do you have to give tests? Now, what did I actually cover? What I have covered is how you have to approach the test. Okay. 1 second. So this part covers, right, how you have to approach tests. How you have to approach the test. Done. How you have to approach the test. Done. This I have covered over here. This is how you need to approach test. So plus 3 days and 2 rounds, PYQs. Everything should be PYQ focus. Now, I want to discuss how should you prepare based on PYQs. So PYQ based preparation. So PYQ based preparation, how should you prepare based on PYQs? Done. So say on June 1, you have your GS1. So you have a GS1 test, right? You have a GS1 test. So how will you approach the GS1 test on June 1? 1 second. So I told you, you take the last 5 years PYQs. So this is the PYQ of 2025. So GS1. Similarly, so this is 2024 GS1. Okay. And this is 2020 GS1. So in each, so go to 2025 GS1 question number, question number 1, 2, till question number 20. Similarly, all the other papers will also be having the same number of questions. So what is the approach for PYQ based preparation? Now listen to this very carefully. Okay. So first read the question. How do you have to do is you need to read the question. You need to read the question from your PYQ. Structure it. break it into parts and subparts, structure it. You don't have to refer any solution as of now. So just read the question, structure it into parts and subparts. Find answers of those structures in your own notes. Find answers of those structures, those, structures, answers of those structures in own notes. Very, very important. In own notes, you have to find answers, right? And revise it. And revise it from own notes. And revise it from own notes. Done. So read the question, structure it, find answers of those structures, right? From own notes, right? From own notes. Answers of those structures from own notes and revise it. Now, so you can go through PYQ solutions as well. So only IS and many other coaching institutes, they've also released the PYQ solutions. They are not perfect, but they can be used as a reference. So you can supplement your notes. This is the second stage, not the first stage. In the first stage, you have to refer your own notes. So supplement using PYQ solutions if required. Supplement your notes using PYQ solutions if required. This is very, very important. So this is only if required, you should do this thing. So supplement using PYQ solutions if required. Done. So read the question structured and supplement using PYQ solutions. Then the same thing that I told you. So you give the test, right? June 1, June 4, and June 7 and all this things. Revise your model answer. That means revise model answer, but not as it is. It should be self-evaluation. Self-evaluation. The first thing is check how much of the notes were you able to write in the answer. So self-evaluation, this will be based on your own content plus model answer. So this will be based on own content plus model answer. And if you find anything relevant, as I explained earlier, anything relevant from the model answer value addition, again include that in your own content. Done. Again include that in your own content. So own content can be supplemented through model answers and own content can be supplemented through PYQ solutions. That means you don't have to keep running after content. Focus on the structure and focus on the writing part. The content will be, even if you don't have the right content, this will eventually get polished, right? Through various embellishments. Now, what if? So few questions. This is how you should do the PYQ based preparation. Read the question, structure it. First, refer your own notes, right? Revise the content, supplement. This is before giving the test. Before giving the test, supplement using PYQ solutions if required. All this till step 2 is to be done before giving the test. Now, give the test, self-evaluate. See how much you were able to retain from your own content and do some value addition from the model answers if required. This should be done the same day you give the test, right? The same day you give the test. Now, you may have two questions. So you may have, so two questions. The question one is, what if I asked you to revise from your own content, right? What if you don't have own content? So what if you don't have own content, right? In that case, what you can do? So it's not a problem, right? Look, even if you don't have own content, what you can do is I'll explain to you, and you can still get a very, very good rank. So the first thing is, if you don't have your own content, there is no problem. Done. So there are some sources that you can refer. So many coaching institutes like Only IS, right, and IS Hub, Vision, Forum, they release compiled mains notes that you can get from the market. So compiled mains notes, it is subject wise that you can get from the market. Or you can refer Telegram for short notes of toppers. Short notes of toppers, you can refer, okay, Telegram. Make it your own notes, right? Make it your own notes. Supplement using the PYQ solutions and the model answers. And after these two, right? So what you can also do is that I will bring the structure plus template videos. Structure plus template videos. So you can, you know, revise your own notes based on these also. Based on these also. Like, how can you improve your content? So even if you don't have any content and it's t is equal to 0, but you can still, get started, because only if you start writing answers you will win the race. And what I was doing, as a mistake in my 5 attempts or 6 attempts was, I was going after content. You don't have to go after content, right? You have to go after the main thing, which is to write meaningful answers in limited time, right? So this is the first part. This is the first question. And the second question that you may have is, so I explained to you only about, right, the GS part, the GS, essay, and all these things. What about your optional? How will you dedicate time to optional in your preparation? So this has to be done daily. Optional and GS, they have to be done daily. So suppose you are studying for 12 hours. Suppose you are studying for 10 to 12 hours, right? So that is the maximum you can study in a dedicated manner. So divide it into easily 3 blocks. This is block one. So this is block two. The block one may be morning time. Block two may be after lunch. And block three will be in the evening time till the time you sleep. Okay, so this is block three. Now, in any block that you want, there's no hard and fast rule, but it has to be done daily. Say, suppose this is block two, you have to give 4 to 6 hours time. You have to give 4 to 6 hours time to optional, right? You have to give 4 to 6 hours time to optional, and this should be done daily, right? This should be done daily. You can give that time in block one, block two, block three, whatever you want, but daily you need to give time to optional, right? In optional also, the preparation strategy remains the same. It has to be PYQ focused. So take the last 5 years PYQs, right? And just revise them based on the individual PYQ and give the test. Give the test and keep revising, right? So this was about this optional part, right? So few things in the end I would like to say, 1 second. Okay. So concluding, so tips based on my learning experiences, some concluding tips, right? You have to be active in your preparation. You cannot consume content. You cannot just keep on consuming content, watch tutorials after tutorials and all these things. So be active. The only way to be active is to write and revise the same day. Do not depend on others. So and be active because you keep on writing, and be responsible. Nobody is going to work for you. You have to work for your own self. So be responsible. How will you be responsible? So this is slightly deviant from what coaching institutes may teach you. You have to be, right? How will you be responsible? So do the self-evaluation, right? So do the self-evaluation and just be active in the preparation, right? So all the best. I hope you achieve your dreams and be very successful. Thank you. Let's meet in the next class. So I don't know, maybe I'll make some video on essay masterclass or some, subject or structuring. Yes, I promised you about the structuring part. So maybe I'll make some video about the PYQ structuring, right? Done. Thank you. Bye bye.